Myself, Laurie Rock, and Maple are here. We are waiting for some of our peers to find the right link. We've had a bit of a problem with our technology tonight, so to start, it's just going to be Maple and I having the discussion. This seems to be a trend, but I don't mind. So what did you think, Maple? The two pieces that we read, one of which was the talk by Sister Beck, which I actually really enjoyed that talk, and I didn't feel like it was negative in any way. It just really brought home, what our divine roles are as mothers, and really highlighted, what our strengths are. And I guess I found it really interesting that individuals would somehow find it to be negative. I between the two pieces that we read, the one, what we know, I don't want to say that it had a negative tone, but it very definitely did not, was not completely supportive of Sister Beck's comments. And however, they kind of aligned what she said, and then just kind of diverged a little bit away from it. So, and I think the verbiage that they used was kind of interesting as well. And I guess I just have, for me, it was just, I was sad. I was sad that people found that, especially women in the church, found her remarks to be, I don't even know what word to use, that they didn't align with them, I guess. That they felt like somehow she was, in a way, talking down to them. I don't know, how did you feel about that, Maple, about how those two pieces that we read, kind of the feelings that you got from both?
Well, with Sister Beck's talk, I actually sided more with her talk because it came from an approach that I understand. Knowledge of the gospel. She had touched on the scriptures, the examples of the mothers of the 2,000 stripling warriors, the proclamation where they, where they declare, the first presidency or the church declares the responsibilities of mothers and fathers to their children, and husbands and wives to each other. It basically, I sided with that because it was basically like common knowledge to me. And I know part of it has to be with my knowledge of the gospel and, what I know of the plan of salvation. And like you mentioned, I mean, even if I wasn't a member of the church, I mean, all these traits of a mother, it just fits in with us as beings who are more sensitive than men are, who has a more sensitive approach to children, who takes time. We have different characteristics with men. And so I believe that's why, and that's how Heavenly Father has assigned our roles of nurturing our children. As far as the other piece, it seemed like they had a sort of a feminist approach to me. It's more of, hey, this responsibility is shared between moms and, dads. We brought this being into this, into this earth and this life, and so we're both responsible to to raise this child. Like the nurturing, it's they say it's a universal attribute. Well, we nurture differently. To me, mothers have a more soft and more understanding way. And then there was something else that I mean, in the approach of what women know, yes, we all share the responsibility at home, but there are precise or specific roles that the father is responsible for that the mom, that the father probably would perform better than the mom would. I agree with you in the way I feel, and reading it. At first I thought, oh, these are from women of the church. And as I started reading it further, I was like, oh, it is kind of pulling away from what we are counseled and how, to effectively raise a family. I can see contention also, it with and a little bit of, how would I say, like maybe some conflict where I've previously we've viewed videos, or I don't know if it's this class or another class, because I'm taking both family classes, and where moms have different expectations from the dads, and when dad tries to run the household when mom's not around, things don't seem to be right when mom gets back, like, well, this should have been, she just has different expectations. So yeah, I don't know if I'm getting carried away with.
Well, and I think that I guess you use the word feminist, and I think that it does have that tone to it. What Women Know, that article does have that tone to it a little bit, because I think the philosophies of men, in the sense that women, what we hear the world telling us is that women should feel like they are equal to, in every way, to a man. And there are just some things that women can do that men can't. They cannot birth children. That is a God-given right. I'm not saying that we are not considered equal in God's eyes, because we are considered equal in God's eyes. But I think for myself, I've had a number of my friends that I've worked with over the years that initially didn't know that I was a member of the church. And I had one woman come to me, one of the teachers come to me and say, well, you can't be a Mormon. And I said, well, why not? And she said, well, because you're assertive and you're outgoing and you have an opinion. And it kind of made me laugh a little bit, because I thought, who are you meeting that are members of the church? What women are you meeting that aren't strong individuals? Just because I have an opinion and I'm outspoken and that I work outside the home does not mean that I am not a good Mormon woman, and that I don't have specific beliefs in regards to my family and my faith. And I think that, as you said, we've been counseled, and we have the proclamation that kind of outlines for us what our specific divine roles are. Not that is we're pigeonholed into that. I have a young couple in my ward. He's a stay-at-home dad, and she goes to work. And you know what? It works really well for them. He is a very kind, nurturing, loving father, and when she's home, she is an amazing mom. And she works very close to home, and so she's able to, come home for lunch when she can come home and nurse her baby. So it works well for them. I don't think that what Sister Beck was saying is that women have to be pigeonholed into a certain role, but we are, I think, innately, as you said, I think it's kind of hardwired, and it's divinely wired, that we are nurturers because we do bear children. And I think that is, an amazing gift and a God-given right for us. And as I read the other article, Women Who Know, no disrespect to their thoughts and feelings, and how that article Sister Beck's talk may have made them feel, but I could sense in the wording of that document a more worldly, maybe isn't the right word to use, but definitely feeling of what the world is telling us. I noticed that multiple times they used the word partner. They did not use the word husband. They used the word partner. And I found that to be very interesting, which kind of opens up a whole nother line of discussion as to what was their intention in using that word. Is there more involved in that? And so I almost felt a little bit maligned by the things they said, that somehow they were marginalizing me because I believed that being a wife and mother is enough. And I guess what I got from that article was that if that's what you believe, then you are not reaching your potential. And that, I think, in a sense is sad, and it's a little hurtful, because I think a lot of moms who make that conscious decision, a lot of women who make the conscious decision to sacrifice and stay home with their children because that's what they want and they know that's what they need to do, and that's kind of the belief they have and the faith they have, that they do feel marginalized, and they do feel by so many individuals, women particularly in this time and day and age, that feel like if you choose to be a stay-at-home mom for any reason, that you are selling yourself short. And that's kind of the tone, I guess, in a very cloaked way, that I felt like, that the people who were writing that article were basically saying, wake up, you are more than just this. And I did not agree with that.
I think another thing that I got from the article was more of, hey, if you want it, and you can do it, why not? We have that free agency, and the when they mention employment with women working out of the home, well, if they want to live in a home that that suits their lifestyle and they're able to go to work, why not? And I see there are points like how you mentioned. The problem that hang on real quick. And sometimes my words may be, like feminist is probably a strong word, but what I was trying to bring out was that, to me, I feel like they're seeking equality. In Sister Beck's talk, the words that mothers who know really deep, because mothers will become leaders, they will become teachers, they will become nurturers, because they know that is their role. With this other article, it's sad to me, it's almost like, where's your faith? Where's your faith going along with obedience? Although we do have that free agency, but where is it? Are we? Don't we have faith in the counsels of the prophets and the blessings? And I'm sure I have seen the blessings of being able to stay at home. Although I've also been I've also been working out of the home, and I've seen things like what I could have accomplished, or how my children could have been if I was a full-time stay-at-home mom than, switching my role into becoming somebody who works outside of the home. For example, my daughter, who was working outside of the home, decided to, because her job was becoming pretty demanding and she wanted to spend more time, putting her kids in sports and a bit getting more involved in her school. And so she decided to quit her full-time job and just do real estate, which is more flexible in her schedule. So now she comes and she says, oh, I'm so happy I'm able to take my kids to school. I'm able to go to school and have lunch with her daughter. She's able to know the things that are going on with her kids in school, and how she can approach that in the home and give more teachings that she wasn't able to do when she was working. Another thought that came to mind when you were talking about a family in your home, in your ward, we have a family that's kind of like the opposite in our ward, who mom works, dad doesn't work. And it was interesting to me that one night we had a Relief Society social, and she was kind of venting to me about her husband. This was like out of the blues, that she felt like she needed to tell me. And the words that she said was very, because she said something like, she was very angry. You can tell, she loves her husband and all, but she was very angry. And she may have been holding this anger for a very long time, because she said that her husband her husband took away how would I put it? Because she was talking to me in Samoan, but her interpretation was, took away the time she could have had at home with her children, but no, she had to work outside the home and miss all the fun things that he was able to do with their kids. And so they're all grown now, and they're more close to their dad, and they listen to their dad more than they do her, with her. And so that kind of carried, this is like a conversation we had probably almost a year ago, and it still, hits my mind when I think of her children. Her oldest son, I helped, submit his papers in for his admission, but he ended up not going. And then her daughter, the second oldest, I heard has now left for her mission. But the words that she said was like, he took away my role as a mom, basically. And that's kind of a sad thing, regretting later what could have been. And because she had to take the responsibility of working outside the home. They're still together. I think they work things out, but there are also specific things that maybe she's able to, deeper things that she's able to talk to somebody else other than her husband about these things. Or she may have talked to her husband, I don't know, but that kind of haunts,
Well, and I figure one of the questions was, what do we view men's role? Or let me look at the question here. How might a man's understanding and conviction of a woman's role dramatically impact the eternal well-being of children, family, and women? And I think the experience you just shared speaks to that. I know when my husband and I before we ever got married, we discussed what were our goals? What would bringing a family into the world look like for us? Yes, he was a member of the church, returned missionary, but you don't know. You don't know what the expectation of your spouse is if you don't have that conversation. And as going forward, I think there are more and more men that have an expectation that their wives might seek employment outside the home, because it is getting more difficult to survive on one income. And I know for my husband and I, that was a conversation that we had, and we sacrificed. We've been married almost 28 years now, and one of the sacrifices that we decided to make, which was actually fiscally prudent, but we've never owned a new car. We have always purchased used cars that we could pay cash for so that we would not have to have a car payment. Making small sacrifices like that made it possible for me to stay home. On the flip side of that coin, I needed to be prepared to be supportive of my husband, because to live on one income meant that he, being self-employed, sometimes had to work 14, 16-hour days, which meant I was home alone with 4 or 5 kids by myself for long periods of time. And it's hard. Being a mom is hard sometimes, and when you don't have interaction with adults and things. But understanding that making the sacrifice to stay home and being able to stay home, I needed to be supportive of him being in the role of a breadwinner and not being negative if he had to work late or if he had to do some things, because it was a blessing for me to stay home. But that was a conversation that we had to have as a couple, so we knew where we were and that we were on the same page. And I will never regret the time that I had with my children. I think that you have your children for a very short time. When they go off to school at 5 or 6 years of age and gone for an entire day, you have a very few years to really impact them and help them understand and learn their values, and having that understanding of what I believe my role to be as a mother. I did not have children to watch somebody else raise them, and I think it's difficult when, as you said, there are sisters, women that we know that have to work outside the home. They don't have a choice. We had a death within our family about a month and a half ago, and he was 46 when he passed away, and his wife is 44. And luckily for her, she has been working outside the home, but has a job that's fairly flexible. But I mean, there are situations where, like the situation that you shared, where sometimes it's difficult and women are pulled away from that role. But I think for all intents and purposes, and we know that that's from the proclamation, that's what our Heavenly Father wants for us, is to be able to rear and nurture and help guide those children. Leaving that up to the world, to teachers, to babysitters, to whatever, is difficult. I mean, because you can't control what other people are teaching your children. And I think that having the support of your spouse, in the sense that they are on the same page with you in your desire to be that type of wife and mother, is amazing. And one of the last questions says, the Savior has said that in the last days, even the very elect shall be deceived. How can we avoid being deceived by the world's philosophies of men and women's roles? And I think that, having faith and sticking to our guns as far as living what we believe is very important. I know in the school in which I work, most of the PTO in our school are members of the church. We have a few ladies that are of different faiths as well, but most of the women who are volunteering on a regular basis are godly women, and they do what they can to be very supportive of their children, and you can see it. You can see it in how the children interact with each other, with their peers, and with adults. So I think that we need to, in order to withstand that, we need to stand up, be counted, and make a difference. Do what we can to share what we know, because I think people notice. I think people realize and notice a difference in those families who have the opportunity to have a mom stay home. And I think outside the church, I think a lot of couples don't feel like they can make it. I really do. I don't feel like a lot of couples feel like financially they can afford to have a mom stay home. And when you sit down and do the actual, dollars and cents of the whole situation, sometimes it saves money for moms to stay home. So on a clearly financial situation when kids are small, but I think being that example and sharing what we know about our experiences, positive experiences that we've had by being able to be home with our children, makes a world of difference, because I think it's becoming the exception, not the rule, and we're seeing it in families and how children are being, how do I put this without it being negative? It's just, I see it in the kids. You can tell when children are not, when they spend multiple hours a day in daycare with really no one-on-one interaction like you would have with a mom, it does make a difference. And I think it has, it can have lasting effects, just not on the kids, but also on the family as a whole. So
yeah, it can be a confusing situation for children, at daycare and then coming home, different dynamics. And so, but I also wanted to share, because I have been, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She had never worked in her life, being raised in the islands and then moved to New Zealand and had us all. She had never, as far as I know, she has never worked in her life. And so I think that was part of her unemployment, because there were like 9 of us, that they had to raise. And yet it was just her and my dad. And then we had aunts and uncles coming from the islands that helped, within the home. So, growing up and being a mother myself, I have not been able to stay at home that long, like how my mom did. And so when I think about how the reasons why, I know of the councils, when my husband and I moved here to the United States, life was very different from what we even thought it would be. I mean, we can survive back home, just living off without employment, because you have the land, you have, you just do use all the natural resources that are available. And that's our lifestyle, back in the islands. But coming here in the United States, things were totally different. And so my husband started working first, and then I got pregnant with our first child. And then what got me started working was that he started out with a job that he didn't even have medical benefits, health benefits. His pay rate at the time was $5.17, and this was probably 30 years ago. We've been here for over 31 years now. But just thinking of when the change, and then we started having bills coming from here and there, and just with an income like that. And then, we stayed with my sister at first, and then we moved out on our own, and that wasn't easy at all. So I started working, and I have been working ever since. So but the thing was, we had always, I would call home, make sure the kids were okay, because our kids are our oldest daughter is 1 year apart from the next child, and the next child is 3 years apart from the next child, and the next child is 1 year apart from the youngest. So they're and so I would always call home and check to make sure he was awake, taking care of the kids while I was working a part-time job. And then I finally, without a degree or without a higher education, I got a job with the school district, and I was so happy. And I know for sure that was a blessing. It was not of any of my knowledge that I, got hired on to become a bilingual tutor with the school district. And so I had the kids go to the school that I was working at. And so that was a big plus. So from elementary all the way up to now that they're all graduated, having families, they were always in the same school that I was in, except when the girls moved up to high school, the boys were still in elementary or moving into middle school. I kind of stuck with the boys, but I think it was a blessing because, you know, my kids don't do drugs or drink, or, you know, they never did fall into those harsh categories that could have happened if they were home alone and my husband and I were working. But instead, I was fortunate to have them, you know, almost always in my presence, where we went to the same school. After school, we would go home together. Then would go, you know, do things at home, and then we'll come to school again together. So I was kind of fortunate to be able to have my children around me when I was working at the same time until they graduated and went to school and, you know, employed. So, but I think, and so I just think with Sister Beck's talk, you know, just knowing your role and knowing what your, like you mentioned, divine role, knowing what your divine role, what's your divine part in this plan for, you know, for us to be together with our families forever. And what the woman, and you know, when you read the last question about, you know, even the elect, I think, you know, members of the church are elect people because we have been blessed with the knowledge of the plan of salvation, what Heavenly Father, and it's been meaningful to us that some of the, how did my light went off again? The elect will be deceived, you know, like we're more little by little, you know, we're enticed into, well, yeah, maybe. And I've seen that a lot with members of the church who are well educated and their education seems to get into the way of, you know, simple doctrine. And so, yeah, I see that too with members of the church. You know, this is what the Lord wants of us, and it's for our own good, not for anybody else's, but it'll be hard.
Well, I think that I agree with what you said, and my situation is I think very similar to yours in the sense that I got to stay home with my children when my husband was working, but I did daycare the whole time. So it wasn't, I mean, I from the time I was 14 years old, I've always had a job. But like you said, when I went from daycare, I went to working in the school district as well. And I knew that the registrar at the school where my kids were going to school was going to be retiring. And so I prayed about it, my husband prayed about it, and we knew that we still needed that additional income, but because his business, you know, being self-employed, we sometimes would go 3 weeks without getting a paycheck, and so we had to have some income. And I too had a very similar experience where I was able, this job just kind of fell into my lap, and I've been there ever since and have loved working there, and same experience being able to have my children there, a flexible schedule. When they were off for Christmas break, I was off for Christmas break when they were off. And so it was the best of both worlds. I could still be, like you say, that eagle eye. I knew where they were and what they were doing, and they were able to, I was able to keep an eye on them and be home when they were home. And so I agree with you. I think Heavenly Father blesses us. And certainly the proclamation to the family where it says, you know, it would be wonderful if moms, and it doesn't say you can't work or you can't do this or whatever. I think that the tone that Sister Beck wants for all sisters in the church is to realize that that is divine and innate within us. And I think that we all have a desire to keep our covenants, to bear children, to do, you know, to be leaders, to do those things. And that doesn't come for everybody. And everyone's experience is not the same. But at our core, we are the same in the sense that we are children of God, and He has divinely developed qualities in each of us that are meant to bless the lives of our families, bless the lives of others, and the children that come into our families, and not the children, just the children that come into our families, But you, you probably feel very, very much the same way I do. I feel like I have the ability to bless the lives of 675 kids every day when I go to work. And some of those kids don't have positive interactions with parents on a frequent basis. A lot of them live in negative situations. And so for me, if I have that ability to take that divine characteristic that God has given me to be a nurturer, and do that at school by saying, hey, Sammy, I see that you got a haircut. You are looking really good today. Or Joey, I like your new tennis shoes. Or, you know, hey, Whitney, I see that you have a pretty pink dress on. You look like a princess. And to see kids just light up when they have ability to feel loved and feel like they belong and they're important. And I know that being a nurturer and a mother does not mean that you have to birth a child. Those qualities are there for women to bless the lives of others, regardless of what our circumstance is. So I appreciate your experiences because I feel like they mirror my own in a lot of sense. And I also feel very fortunate to be thankful for the knowledge, like you said, that I do have divine qualities, and that Heavenly Father has given me the opportunity to use those to bless not only the lives of my own children, but the lives of many other children and people around me as well, just by virtue of those characteristics that He instilled in me and in all women. So
I like how you mentioned that. I mean, both of us working in an educational environment, that's so true. We see kids in and out, and you know, the different lives that they that we can tell or sense in a way that school is like a safe haven for them, you know, with friends that they're able to hang out with, and adults who actually see the potential that they have, and you can see the difference, you know, when their performance academically and able to focus when they're here in school. So, you know, regardless of the matter, when they do. Oh, sorry. Can you still hear me, Laurie?
Sorry, I muted my dogs were barking like crazy.
Okay. I saw your hand moving. I hit that.
No, my nephew just came in the front door and my dogs went insane. So.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, well, I think we covered all of the questions that we needed to cover. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for your input and your thoughts tonight. Appreciate it.
Well, you as well. And I feel bad that nobody else managed to catch up with us, but.
Yeah, I tried. I thought that I got this thing down. It's the last week. I don't know if we're having a meeting next week, but I thought I had this down, and I was hoping. But it seemed like we lost Ashley. The others, I didn't see them try to hop on or anything. But Ashley, I think we lost her. So. Yeah,
well, Carly mentioned that she would be able to come, but I didn't see her pop on to any of the pages that we had, but we were kind of all over the place.
That's true, yeah.
Thank you, technology. So, all right, well, I will stop broadcasting now, and then I will post the link for this in the discussion board.
Okay, thanks, Laurie. Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye, Maple.